You know, the first I'd heard about Saturn was at this conference at McMaster University. That would have been in '74. And Immanuel Velikovsky was there. The Talbot brothers were there, David and George Talbot, right? Everett Cochran. It's not like EV, it's Everett. Cochran was there, and a number of the people whose names you've become familiar with were there. And it was the first time I'd heard people talking about Saturn, and what had actually happened was that Velikovsky had originally meant for Worlds in Collision to contain information about Saturn. He was talked out of it, right? I mean, it was like the book was just too much as it was, right? I mean, it wasn't going to get any sort of a reasonable reception. And, you know, it didn't. But nonetheless, he had promised to put the Saturn material into some sort of a second volume of Worlds in Collision. It never happened. He ended up writing other books, and just the overwhelming negative response he got in academia. You know, he had a runaway international bestseller for several months, right? And then it was shut down. I mean, you know, this was just blackmail on the part of the universities, particularly the astronomy departments at Harvard and other schools. Macmillan was told that they were either going to drop this runaway international bestseller of theirs, or that they would not be allowed to sell textbooks in North America. You know, they ended up handing Worlds in Collision off to Doubleday, which didn't have a textbook division. You know, that's a sort of a crazy story, right? You had somewhere around that same period of time a kind of I don't know what you would call it exactly. It was a meeting where you had Carl Sagan and you had Velikovsky and you had a number of other people, right? And it was really sort of a witch hunt. I mean, you know, Velikovsky still was not given any sort of a fair hearing. Now, when they discovered the actual conditions on Venus, there should have been a line, you know, like a couple of miles long, of scientists lined up in front of Velikovsky's door to apologize, right? I mean, that never happened. See, starting from the 1950s and 60s, you know, schools were still teaching that Venus was a sister planet of the Earth's, you know, that it should have, you know, say roughly the same size as Earth. It should have the same general sort of history as the Earth. Okay. In other words, it should be, you know, at any given latitude, it should be about 10 or 15 degrees warmer than the Earth was, just due to its position in the solar system. You know, that's what they were teaching in 1960, and you know, it didn't take that much longer, right? I mean, they ended up with probes over Venus, and they finally got to where they understood that, like, the surface of Venus is going to be 850 degrees Fahrenheit, you know, that you could melt lead. And, you know, there's no reasonable, I mean, there's no reasonable way to explain something like that. You know, Venus is, you know, it has everything that you would expect for a new planet, right? You've got like a 90 bar CO2 atmosphere, a 2-mile-an-hour wind would knock you over. It's a massive thermal imbalance, massive upwards infrared flux, and all of those kinds of things, you know, complete lack of regolith. There's no dirt on Venus. That's everything that you would expect for a new planet, right? But, you know, Velikovsky was systematically denied any sort of credit for, you know, he had predicted that Venus was going to be incandescently hot, just due to its recent history, you know, due to the picture he had uncovered, you know, basically describing the recent history of Venus. Carl Sagan devised what he called a super greenhouse theory to explain this heat, in which supposedly some tiny modicum of sunlight gets through all of these CO2 clouds and, you know, heats up the surface of Venus, right? And this heat cannot re-radiate as infrared because of the CO2 clouds, right? Now, that's ludicrous. We've had descender probes going to the surface of Venus, and they describe the middle cloud layer as being pitch black. It says no light whatsoever in the middle cloud layer, and then as you get to the surface, it gets bright. You know, what that tells you, you know, so that it's well lit once you get to the surface. That says that the light at the surface is being generated locally. You understand what I'm saying? It's, you know, any sort of a modicum of sunlight that ever got through those clouds would be like a drop of water in the ocean compared to the local light, which is seen there. And, you know, that just says that what Sagan is proposing is ludicrous, but I mean, that's still, to this day, that's the official position of academia. That's the official explanation they give for the conditions on Venus, and that's just completely ridiculous. It's an anti-theory. It's like a sort of a doctrine that was devised specifically to prevent Emmanuel Velikovsky from receiving any credit for this overwhelming correct prediction of his.
That he basically
So all
said
these
that.
things were going on like in the early to mid 1970s, and then they had this conference at McMaster University, and people were talking about Saturn at the time, right? And the average person doesn't really spend a whole lot of time reading through antique literature or
Right.
trying to familiarize himself with any of those kinds of things, so that the idea of Saturn ever having been a dwarf star, or of us ever having been a planet of Saturn's, is just, it's like a body punch or something. I mean, to the typical person who's not familiar with anything like that. To ancients, or to anybody that's familiar with antique literature, it's not going to come as that much of a surprise. Okay,
Right, exactly.
You've
Yes.
got basically remnants of this previous system all around us, right? We still call our Sabbath Saturn's Day, right? The most major Roman religious festival was called Saturnalia. Got classical authors, Hesiod, Ovid, both claiming that you'd had a golden age when Kronos, or Saturn, was the king of heaven, followed by the flood, followed by a silver age when Jupiter was Zeus was the king of heaven. Followed by roughly the age of the Trojan War, and then our present age is right. Our present age is called an Iron Age. In the same language, what do they mean by the king of heaven, right? Well, in the same language, our sun is the king of heaven now. In the early 1900s, you'd had a number of articles appearing in the Journal of Assyriology, basically outlining the question of a confusion of language between the sun and Saturn. Apparently all of the names which anybody used for the sun in the Mediterranean basin early on were words which had originally pertained to Saturn, which got switched at some point, right? Shamesh, right, which the Bible refers to as Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, right? Let's see if I can find a picture of that. And I had like a bunch of good artwork sitting around here in various places. I think this is it, right? It's like what you've got sitting here. Can you see this picture here?
No, I can't. All I see is your little profile picture. Why is that? Screen sharing options.
Yeah, Greg, can you see this?
Let me see. No, I can't.
This is Shamish iconography.
No, I'm not seeing. Where are you doing that at? Are you doing it on Skype?
Yeah.
There you go.
These are Shamish glyphs from Babylon and surrounding territories. You've seen this?
Oh yeah, the Scenaria Binaria, I've seen it, but not on your website. I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. Shamash was like the Moabite version of Saturn, right, or Kronos, and what you're seeing here is completely different from our present sun, right? There's no way that anybody would look at our present sun and then draw a picture like this. It's something else entirely. It sometimes shows like this, where you have like a pillar of some sort, which is represented by a person or a god here in this picture. Or sometimes you'll see the ancient star sitting on some sort of a pedestal, right? Now, or something like this, right? What you're seeing in the form of the pedestal here, what the Egyptians called Shu, or the pillars of Shu, is this electromagnetic column of light which you had going between Saturn and Venus and Mars and Earth, right? This would be the idea of the great god living on top of the magic mountain, like Zeus on Olympus, or, Yahweh on Mount Zion. Okay, and sometimes the magic mountain is drawn like a person or a god or something like this, right? You're seeing all of this, Greg?
Oh yeah, the four rivers there, the
Greg, you with me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I see it.
Have pictures. This is David Talbot's version of an interpretation of what some of these images show. It's like you've got Saturn and then like the blue object would be Venus, and the red object would be Mars, right? But there's a problem with this picture of David's, which shows this crescent just as a crescent of light. Okay, Troy McLaughlin does not agree with this.
Yeah, there's one more question that comes to mind too, and that is Evie Cochran says that Venus appeared green.
Green or blue,
Yeah,
okay? From
By the way,
you're
folks,
talking about
that are
it
watching,
changing.
we're going to
You're talking
ask
about trying to,
questions last 15.
moving target here.
Okay.
Turquoise.
Yeah.
Okay, Egyptian pyramid writings describe not Atum but Osiris as shedding green light over the world, right?
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have anything in the sky that sheds green light, pure emerald light over the earth, right? We don't have anything like that today.
Now I wanted to ask you one question here. When
Sure.
that is when Mars is in that configuration, and those plasma, I'm assuming those are plasma formations that are across Saturn. Those are actually electric machine arcing the whole thing, right? It's like just being all just bombarded and fused, or is that some kind of just a plasma configuration? It's charged, right? It has to be.
Yeah, okay, it's like you're seeing plasma phenomena, physics phenomena here. There's no way to make something blue out of Venus, just by its own native light, right? I mean, Venus is sort of like an off-white color.
Mm-hmm.
If you were up close to it, right? It's got here is blue light being generated by electrical arcing between Saturn and Venus.
Okay.
And just heated up to like blue heat. It's not like white hot, it's blue hot.
Yeah, and that's even
Okay,
hotter.
so that's not the natural color of Venus. That's being created by plasma discharge. The idea of this crescent on Venus or on Saturn being reflected sunlight, reflected sunlight from the sun, is problematical. That would put us between the sun and Saturn, or it'd put us between Saturn and some other very large body that could throw a shadow like that on the face of Saturn. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That, in other words, Troy has a big problem with that, and I have a problem with that. Now, the other thing that you might try to argue, you might could try to claim that blue object is Uranus or Neptune rather, and not Venus, but that has all kinds of problems. I mean, you don't really want to go there.
Right.
Okay. I was talking about literature, a short while ago. If you really want to read about the age of Kronos, I think probably something that you ought to read is one of Plato's dialogues, which is called Statesman.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And he describes what he calls the age of Kronos, right? Plato consistently referred to antediluvians as nurslings or children of Kronos, or children of Saturn, children of the age of Saturn. Technology down straight here as time goes on.
Did it get better?
But there's a problem here. Let me see if I can find Troy's version of this thing, okay?
Yeah.
Like I say, Troy has a problem with David Talbot's
I'm gonna look
there.
I'm gonna look real quick while you're doing that.
Okay. Are you with me?
Listen. Yeah, I just want to see what the people are telling me. All right.
Okay.
Greg, you have headphones. Ah, yes. That's exactly what I was thinking. I think that your voice is coming through my speakers into my mic and feeding back. That's what I think. So I'm gonna real quick here. I'm gonna just hit the mute button and set it up. It'll be like 10 seconds. Okay. I'll be right back.
Greg, you there?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm here. Headphones
are on. See this picture of Troy's here?
Oh, I've seen that. I just saw that picture recently. Now let me check with
It's the picture that I wanted you to take a look at, and I don't know why. Just the fact that the crescent that you see in the ancient iconography is not like a crescent of reflected light. It's light on the ring of Saturn itself, and then you've got the shadow of the body of Saturn falling over the ring.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because of the tilt inclination.
I got it. Okay.
Okay, this is Troy's version of the ship of the morning, ship of the evening, ship, midday. The same
Mhm.
kind of a thing that David Talbot describes. Okay. Other
Mhm.
parts of David Talbot's analysis, I think, are golden, right? His analysis of the White Crown of Egypt, what caused that, I think was as good as you could hope for,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
We were talking about different versions of a Saturn theory. There are about a half dozen versions of a Saturn theory floating around out there. The only
Yeah.
thing that I believe is absolutely certain is the fact that 30 or 40 years from now, some version of a Saturn theory will be generally accepted. Now, the only question is which version.
Right. Right.
And you've got several of these, and I don't really have, we've got like maybe an hour here or something. I mean, I don't
Well,
made into a presentation. I mean, as
right.
far as like,
I know that,
you know,
Ted. We're just kind of
Velikovsky's
flying by the
version
seat.
versus
Yeah.
Talbot's version versus John Cook's version
Well, how
versus,
about if I could just
versus
suggest
Troy's and
something?
my version versus, um, give people some idea of like the versions of these things that exist
Okay.
and where to go looking for them.
Go ahead.
Okay, you've got Velikovsky's version of a Saturn theory, which you could find just searching on Velikovsky and Saturn on the internet, right? That'll
Mhm.
turn up. He was going to originally make that part of Worlds in Collision. He was talked out of it by Macmillan. Um, you've got that. You've got David Talbot's, theory, which began with a book called The Saturn Myth. Let
Mhm.
me see if I can find something just to give you an idea of what that looks like, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I've got that.
Okay. You've got a little clasp here. Can you see this picture? You've got like what the Egyptians called a shenbond
Yeah. Yeah. I
clasp,
see.
which shows like a golden body of something or other, and then a blue body, and then a red body, right? It's like Saturn, Venus, and then Mars, right? And this is like for a coat or a cape or something.
Yep.
Okay, so that in Egyptian artwork, this picture is just sort of everywhere, right? I mean, here we go. The Saturn myth, David Talbot, right? And he's got
Yeah.
he's got the magic mountain, right? The column of light, the pillars
Oh.
of Shu, right? And then the ring, and the funny thing is, I mean, this is 1980. David Talbot had this right in 1980, and then he thought that he'd made a mistake, right? He thought that this crescent that he was seeing was always going to be reflected light, but I mean, it's more likely that he was closer to being on the money like in 1980 originally.
Yep. He tells the
Okay,
story in
you've
remembering
got
the.
other pieces of the Talbot, Thornhill, Cochrane, Cardona version of this thing out there on YouTube and in various places on the internet. If you just get on YouTube and type in symbols of an alien sky,
Yeah, there it is.
okay, here we go. This is what this looks like on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
This is David Talbot and the people of the Thunderbolts.info group.
Mhm.
And this is your most major group of people on the internet who talk about this kind of thing. And you're just talking about a very radically different version of ancient history than what is taught in our schools for the most part. Symbols of an alien sky, Saturn myth, right? This would be, here's another kind of a funny picture here. Discourse on an alien sky. They've got a picture that turns up in Egyptian hieroglyphics pretty much all the time, right? And what you've got is like a star with a ring around it. And then you've got a magic mountain made up out of light, right? But for all intents and purposes, what you're seeing here are lightning forks. As normally when anybody draws a picture of lightning, as artwork, then the lightning forks, the lightning forks should point downwards, right? And these
Mhm.
point up. You understand the difference? Anyway, all of this stuff makes for interesting watching and reading here. It's like, that's the David Talbot version of a Saturn theory, right? You've got, let me go back to what I was seeing here a short while ago. Okay, you've got this video of yours, like you've got the John, he spelled his name J-N-O. The gentleman died here like about a couple of years ago. He pronounced the name John Cook as if it was J-O-H-N, right?
Right.
Saturn cosmology, and this guy was no dummy, Greg. There are, golden nuggets, interspersed around all this stuff of his.
Mhm.
He was the one who basically claimed to have done the calculations, which put Jupiter at about zero point 0.7 AU, like in prehistoric times, right? What does that mean exactly? What that means is that the normal situation in our galaxy for dwarf stars or gas giant planets, which are aligned with the main sequence star like our sun, would be to have them in much closer to the main sequence star than Jupiter or Saturn are to our sun now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this brings up an interesting sort of a question. Why would Jupiter and Saturn be where they are now? If they used to be dwarf stars, right?
Exactly.
And
Yes.
have you ever heard the name Robert Bass?
No, I have not.
Okay, one of the best mathematicians of the past century,
Mhm.
Brigham Young University, and what is he noted for? The most major argument against Velikovsky, which I used to hear, was that starting from a chaotic situation such as Velikovsky described, it would take millions of years for the system to stabilize and to begin to look the way it looks now. That was the biggest argument.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Robert Bass blew that to pieces.
Okay.
Now, what he claimed, and I've never heard I've never heard or read anybody claiming to refute this. He claimed that the Titus-Bode law of celestial dynamics, which describes the order of our solar system, was the solution to a dynamical relaxation problem.
Bode's law.
Okay, and what he said was that you could start the bodies in our system pretty nearly anywhere, and they would be where they are now within a few thousand years, assuming that you've got all of the bodies of our system up somewhere close enough together to be gravitationally bound, right? Then
Yeah.
without even worrying about electromagnetism or anything like that, then just by gravity, then he said that the bodies in our system would be where they are now within a few thousand years, right? So that the location of Venus and Saturn now are basically part of this solution to the question of the Titus-Bode law.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're doing a
Okay.
great job considering.
Okay, I'm
I know
sorry. It's
this
like
is all.
you'll pardon me if I'm pausing for a few seconds, between little segments of this thing.
Oh, that's okay, Ted.
That's the reason why.
Mm-hmm. You're not showing anymore, right? You're not
Okay,
showing your screen anymore, are
I
you?
thought I was.
Well, it
It seems
stopped.
to fall out. It seems to fall out of that. Let me know.
Oh,
Okay,
okay. I
let me
will.
know.
I thought that you were done with that. Let me see. I'm trying something here.
Okay,
Window
here's
capture.
Skype again. Share screen,
Here,
right?
Skype. Yes, right here. Bam.
Okay, are you
Now I
seeing my
think I
screen
got it.
now?
Not yet, but I thought I had it licked, but I guess I don't. I'm just going to put it on monitor and look at the Skype. Okay, I'm looking at it. You're showing my video again.
Yeah, I'm showing
Okay.
yeah, that's the sun there right now.
Okay.
Um, so that John Cook was talking about about Jupiter being up close to the sun in prehistoric times, right?
Yeah.
Like about
Yeah.
0.7 AU, so like closer to the sun than we are now. That puts Jupiter well within the habitable zone of the sun, and what that does with Ganymede and possibly one or two others of the four large moons of Jupiter is it makes Ganymede into a freshwater ocean world.
Yeah. Well, I thought the same thing too, Ted. So he's in agreement with you there.
Right. So that's just intriguing, right?
Right. Because Jupiter had to have its moons, at least some.
Right. Jupiter has about 67 moons, of which four are large. Those are called Galilean moons, right? Because Galileo was able to see those moons with just the first telescopes.
Right. And I was in favor of your theory, mainly because of the Herbig Haro. The whole thing
Okay,
just fits. The scenario, the Herbig Haros being what
right.
we're said there be.
Let
Go
me
ahead. Take it from there.
let me go over like a couple of the problems that you have like with the other versions of a Saturn theory.
Hmm.
Okay, one problem with John Cook's work is that he assumes this 4 billion year
Yeah.
age thing that we've had crammed into our heads all our lives,
Right. Yeah.
right? And that turns out to be garbage.
Yeah.
You know, the Earth is not 4 billion years old. They used to try to come up with estimates of the Earth's age just from stitching Bible chronologies together, and they used to believe that the Earth and possibly also the entire universe were like about 5 or 6 or 7 thousand years old, right?
Okay. Right.
You know, the problem is that we've actually got one body in our system, one planet, which actually is, you know, ballpark for some kind of a 5 or 6 thousand year age estimate, which is Venus, right? But Venus looks like that. I mean, we know what a 6,000-year-old planet looks like. I mean, it's got an 850 degree Fahrenheit surface temperature and 90 bar CO2 atmosphere. Massive thermal imbalance, radiates a great deal more energy than it takes in from the sun. Massive upwards infrared flux. Complete lack of regolith, no dirt, right? It's like the surface is so pristine that they talk about a resurfacing event, you know, quote unquote, you know, some which they like to put somewhere back about a 500,000,000 years ago, right? But that's also that's also BS.
Okay.
Okay, there was never any sort of resurfacing event on Venus, right? The Earth and
Right.
Mars don't look like that at all. I mean, we know what a 5,000-year-old planet looks like because of Venus. The Earth and Mars don't look like that at all. So you have to assume that the Earth and Mars are a whole lot older than that, but not hundreds of millions of billions of years old, right?
Exactly. Right.
Really have a way of knowing how old the Earth is or how old our system is. You're trying to come up with a reasonable guess.
Exactly.
Okay, the numbers that we've read all our lives, you know, the 4 billion year thing, are the ages, estimated ages for the Earth and for our solar system, are based on assumptions which go out the window the first minute you allow for even one cosmic disaster of global scale, right? And there have been several.
Hmm.
You know, we don't even know what a word like year would have meant before the flood, right? It's like, you know, the flood rearranged the whole solar
20 to
system.
40. Yeah.
Okay. One of the problems is that the people that tell us that the Earth is 4 billion years old are the same people that tell us that dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago.
But it doesn't
You know,
mean anything.
a couple of ways you could look at that. You know, like I say, if you just the fact that you're getting good radiocarbon dates for the soft tissue and dinosaur remains
Hmm.
says that you're dealing with a few tens of thousands of years. You're not dealing with hundreds, you know, tens of millions of
Yeah.
years.
That's
Right,
exactly.
it's more
Yeah.
like
That was what I was trying
65,000
to say.
years than 65 million years. That's a factor of 1,000 to 1. If you just divide this 4 billion year um, age estimate that you've been reading all your life by 1,000, is more like about 4 million years, right? That would say that the Earth was 4 million years old. I could live with that. The evolutionists can't live with that.
Hmm.
Okay, obvious reasons. Now,
What was the Absu, Ted? What
I'm
was it
sorry.
all about? What was it all about with the Absu? Supposedly there was water in space,
Um,
and when it burst, we had our second.
dwarf stars are watery environments. Okay, it's like a dwarf star is going to have a plasma heliosphere, and planets aligned with a dwarf star are going to be inside that plasma heliosphere. The plasma heliosphere is going to have,
So I'm watching chat right now. Okay, go ahead. Keep
I
going.
think
I asked you about the
the
Absu.
mic might have been just a little bit too close.
Yeah, yeah, that's what
You were
happens.
asking
Yeah,
me about water and,
I'm still
you know, the
hearing it.
Apsu, whatever that was. What
Right.
I started to reply was that dwarf stars generally carry water. You know, they're
Right.
generally watery environments. You know, water for the flood came. Like I said,
Okay.
dwarf stars are watery environments.
Yes.
The plasma heliosphere of a dwarf star is going to reflect light back in. You know, it's going to reflect this star is a watery environment, and
Right.
the water. You know, the rings of Saturn come from that original watery environment of the plasma heliosphere.
Yes. We're
One
gonna.
way you can get an idea of how big Saturn might have been in prehistoric times is that you know Earth Earth was the largest rocky planet of the Saturnian system, whereas Ganymede was the largest rocky body of the Jupiter system, or the Jovian system, right? And Earth is substantially bigger than Ganymede, right? So I mean that would lead you to expect that
Saturn would have been larger than Jupiter.
Prehistoric times, before this blowout. Well, you'd asked about water and the flood, and the question of what about a dwarf star?
Yeah.
Basically is watery, right, or involves water.
Mm-hmm.
Ancient literature says, believe it or not, that our own oceans were not salty prior to the flood. They claim that the salt in the oceans came from the flood.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the Dead Sea, which is very indicative of a massive salt dump right in that area during the flood or something.
Yeah. It's funny because there's no there's no source on this planet for the salt in the oceans, right? There's no place that you can go to on Earth where you can say, oh, gee, look at all the salt here. This must be where all the salt in the oceans come from.
Yes.
Right.
All right, someone just said, there you go. I think we got it finally at the end of the show.
Are people getting to be happier with voice levels?
Yeah, I increased my audio prominence or something and by a 4, right. And that seems
what I'm trying to do to keep from going crazy is just to have the earphone parts of the headset just away from my ears.
All right, start asking, guys, let's ask questions, like try to take it one at a time. First question that comes up, I'll ask Ted. We got 15, well, we actually got about 15 more minutes to be on, so it's the rest of the show belongs to you if you want to ask questions. If not, Ted can just keep going. It's 10:43. I don't want to go over an hour with the first show because I want them to get better. Where did gold come from? That's what I would say. Yeah. He wants to know if it rained gold. Did gold come from Saturn, Ted?
Gold probably is created by electrical arcing.
Arcing.
Gold is something which can be created by plasma physics phenomena. Gold and heavy metals. Okay, it's like most of the. I'll give you one sort of a problem. Most of the dating schemes that you read about, for time periods beyond what you can get with radiocarbon dating, involve isotope ratios, of heavy metals. But if you think about it, there shouldn't be any heavy metals near the surface of our Earth if you believe, anything resembling standard theory as to how a planet would be formed. The heavy metals should all be near the center. You see, what that tells you is that the heavy metals that we find on or near the surface of the Earth either arrived here via impact events or were created here via these plasma physics phenomena, such as would have created the Grand Canyon, where you have electrical arcing between two differentially charged bodies. You get a planet like Mars too close to Earth, and you're going to get like arc discharge between the two planets, right? You're going to get, the Grand Canyon itself is an electrical scar. It's not something created by water.
Right,
I mean,
right.
You've got layers of sediment, which you can see on the canyon walls, right? But those were laid down earlier, right? The canyon itself is not created by water. There isn't any giant pile of debris out where the Colorado River used to empty into the Pacific Ocean. The pile of debris is missing. It's like basically, the material from the canyon simply got vaporized and then blasted into space.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense to me. Ria wants to know, what do you think of the magnetic reversal and solar minimum?
I'm sorry, do what now?
30 more minutes, okay. What do you think of the magnetic reversal, the pole reversal, and the solar minimum?
Okay, I don't have a theory about the magnetic reversal. Now, what we're seeing now with this impending second, new little ice age is just a fluctuation in the way that a star operates, right? If a star was a thermonuclear engine, as they teach, then you would not have little ice ages.
Okay.
Right. I mean, it wouldn't exist.
Okay. So you don't think that
a little ice age is just a fluctuation in the way that a star operates,
shockwave,
depending on, which could be caused by a periodic increase in strength of the Birkeland current, which powers the sun,
Mm-hmm.
or could be caused by the travel of the sun through regions of greater or lesser electrical potential difference from itself, right?
Okay.
Now, the major ice ages, like the Pleistocene, had cosmic causes. They will not recur.
Okay.
Okay, Troy's book goes into that, right? Troy's
You're not
other
a,
book, which is
you're
called
not a
Saturn
sick,
Death Cult.
you're not a cycle guy for doomsday then. I take it.
No, I
How do
don't
you,
believe in any of the cycle
okay.
stuff that you read from other authors. I don't believe that anything which has happened to us in the past is cyclic in nature.
Okay. Shockwave
Okay.
wants to know, how do you explain the purple dawn and its time end of it being 12,900 years ago? Do you think that was the end of it? The whole polar alignment and everything that
Okay, the
the
purple dawn would have been the primordial condition of the Earth that would go, from the time that it ended until the beginning of the Earth. That was the primordial condition of the Earth.
yes. Yeah.
Okay, the creatures of the purple dawn all have the same kinds of huge eyes. Dinosaurs, hominids like the Neanderthal,
Mhm.
remaining creatures from the purple dawn age.
Yeah.
Lemurs, tarsiers, bush babies, owls, owl monkeys,
When did
any
that
number of things all have these same gigantic eyes, right?
yeah.
Danny Vendramina's Neanderthal reconstructions are, they're tour de force, right? I mean, artwork. I mean, most of what you see, which talks about Neanderthals, describes them as being just slightly different humans, right? I mean, just people that are just a little bit different from one of us. I mean, over the
Yeah.
last 70 or 80 years, the Neanderthal became a sort of a poster child for kumbaya pseudo
Yeah.
religion.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all just sort of alike, right? But you have to ask yourself what you would expect a creature with DNA, which is halfway between ours and that of a chimpanzee, to look like, right?
Mm.
For
Yeah.
instance, I mean, like early human needles are common, right? Nobody's ever found a Neanderthal needle because a
No,
creature with a 6 inch
exactly. Yeah.
long fur coat doesn't require needles, right? I mean, just don't need them.
Okay. All right. I just caught up with the crew here. Let's
Okay.
see what they're saying. When
The
were
the
things,
the
yeah, things were
I'm
bigger
sorry.
then
It's like
too,
the
obviously.
purple dawn came to an end with this golden age when Saturn flared and lit up for a period of time, and then eventually the whole Saturnian system was captured and absorbed by our present sun. And from that time, I mean, we've been living in proximity to a main sequence star. Most of the planets that you would find in the universe are probably going to be around dwarf stars. Again, I don't think that a planet like Earth revolving around the main sequence star is probably not that common in the universe.
Where did we get our moon, Ted?
I'm sorry?
Where did we get the moon?
That I don't know. You see, now that's the kind of thing that John Cook has an easy
It
time
is
explaining.
interesting.
I don't have much of a theory for that one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that
I mean,
that's
okay. Go ahead.
that's the kind of thing that bothers me about John Cook's writings. Like the flood occurred. Like at 7:37 in the morning. Like a Friday, the 17th of June, minus
Yeah. Yeah.
31.
Right.
You know.
Well, there might be, there could be a couple ways of figuring things out like that. If a certain celebration or
Right.
day fell on, then 3 days after that day, this happened. Well, then, yeah, I can see where they could
Right.
say, this time and that
The,
day.
the
Maybe it
most
could be
major thing
possible.
that separates Troy's and my version of a Saturn theory from the other
Yeah, I
versions
agree,
that you're
Shockwave.
familiar with, the question of the Herbig Haro string and the question of the form. Troy and I believe that our whole system, including everything that we see now, formed up pretty much in one place, right? So that you don't have to explain how Saturn would have just somehow or other wandered into the sun system, starting from the depths of deep space, right? I mean, I don't regard that as possible.
Do you think it's possible the moon was deliberately placed where it is? Is it
That's
possible?
possible. Okay, it's like I wasn't there. You'd need a time machine to answer that one.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, so, I mean, it's very, very plausible that we could have had a spacefaring civilization before in our past. There's no way we can prove it or disprove it. There's something funny
Right.
going
The
on in the
evidence that
South
we see on
Pole.
Mars indicates that you
Everybody
did
knows
have a
that.
spacefaring
At
civilization.
least
By the time you
should.
had humans living on Mars,
What?
they,
I think Ted just went bye-bye.
hang on, hang on.
Oh, I can hear you. You're still, you sound like a little android.
Hang on.
What happened?
I don't know. Let me.
Oh boy,
What about
man,
now?
it's getting ugly again, Ted.
Let me
Okay,
hang up and call back
there
when
you
Scott.
are. There you are.
Oh,
Are
better?
you there? Yeah, it's better.
Okay, don't ask me. I mean, I'm not a Skype expert. You're shooting at a moving target with Skype.
Yes, same here. I'm just trying to learn everything at the same time and bring a halfway decent show. That's why I wanted to keep it short, so we didn't.
Are you getting any other questions from the audience?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Let's see. Back saved. Okay. We're going to go for a little bit longer. I see the north lit up. Thumbs up. Looking for a question. Thanks. This is awesome. From Zappa. Buried alive. Cliff hanging. Gold pounded flat. Very thin. Will show green light through it. When. Okay, that was the moon. Okay, yeah, no more. I'm not getting any questions. So, use the force. Well, I'll use the good.
Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
Give me just
Let's
a
see,
second,
live
Greg. It's
stream,
like I'm
don't
getting some
stop.
kind of another YouTube type thing.
Birkeland currents can be used for space travel. Can Birkeland currents be used for space travel, Ted? I know that you're an enthusiast for the secret space program.
No, the answer is no.
Why?
Give me a second. There's the thing that you really want to be looking into for space travel is going to be what you call Biefeld-Brown propulsion, electrogravitic propulsion. Okay. Oh shoot! It's like on barefootbreak.org,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
There's
Who has the most
share screen.
Who has the most interesting Saturn theory to you of all?
I think it's Troy McLaughlin.
You believe in Troy that much, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he's an intelligent young guy. I know that. I haven't read his
What I would
stuff yet.
suggest,
Fixing
look,
to.
what I would suggest
Mm-hmm.
is that what I would suggest is that you go to the YouTube channel for the Ganymede hypothesis, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know all
Can you
about
see
that.
this? Okay, my channel.
Okay, hold on a
Yeah,
second.
can you see my screen now?
It's very little. Yeah, I see it, but it's very little. And no, yeah, there you go. Okay, it's big. Okay, all
Okay.
right.
Videos for the Ganymede hypothesis. Right. The one which says Ganymede hypothesis parts 1 and 2.
Okay, yeah, we watched that. That's a good one.
Going to be Troy McLaughlin. This is going to give you Troy's and my version.
Yeah, you're going again. The thing with Troy's, he doesn't really get very in depth with his time scale. That's what I would like to see more of. I noticed most of them. The only one that has really given us a time scale that I see so far is Velikovsky and Cook.
Yeah, and John Cook,
the rest of them,
his time scales to me are just completely wrong.
There you are.
I would get rid of those. But I'm getting some kind of a thing which is like another. Let me see if I can find this and shut it off. It's like I'm getting another like a video which is going on in the background, which is talking about assault weapons and
really? You're getting a video?
Politics. Yeah, you're not hearing that at all?
No. I'm not hearing it at all.
Causing that. It's like there's some kind of an error on my system or something.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's been kind of freaky. Well, I think, let me see if they got any more questions or whatever. Yeah, we just need some practice. That's right. Yep.
All right. Any more questions or
any more questions, guys? Anything at all? Because we're going to be wrapping it up here. But, we're going to come back.
Okay, next go, Greg. I'd sort of like to get into this business of what it is that I don't like about the idea of Saturn just a Saturnian system just wandering into the neighborhood of our sun from deep space, right?
Yeah, well, go ahead. We can
You
stand
know,
for a little longer. Get into it.
there are two ways you can shoot something, right? You can either shoot something with a weapon that has a sight on it, like a rifle,
Yeah,
or you can
yeah,
shoot something with a shotgun, right? So you've either got
right,
something which is aimed, which would be like
yeah,
Ming the Merciless from Mongo aiming Saturn at our sun
right.
from, light years away, right?
Mm.
You'd have to have something very precisely aimed. Or you'd have to have some kind of, the other thing that you have for shooting things is a shotgun, right? Suppose you've got some kind of a giant cloud of Saturn-sized objects flying past our solar system, and one of those, just the law of averages says that one of those might get captured, right? Well, I
Yeah,
mean, the problem with that is that would be like the thing that David Talbot would be talking about. The problem is, that it would have to be flying at less than the escape velocity from our system, right? And that says that this cloud of Saturn-sized objects would still be very close to us. It wouldn't
I,
have gone very far since that. If you're talking about 10,000 or 15,000 years ago, it would still be right out there in the sky, right? And our satellites would pick that up very easily.
yeah,
Our optical satellites can see Proxima Centauri, right, which is 4 light years away. And something like I'm talking about it wouldn't even be 1 or 2 light years away, right? I mean, it would be right, it'd be right there in the near sky. You
hmm
see what I'm saying?
yeah.
So,
Well,
so that
yeah. In
logically,
a
what
way,
you would have to have for a Saturnian system to just wander into our, the neighborhood of our sun, it just that doesn't make any sense. Whereas when you start talking about, the whole system being originally created in a Herbig Haro string,
Mhm.
which is what you actually do see out there in the cosmos, then the whole thing works, right? You don't have to
Right.
explain Saturn wandering in from deep space or getting, precisely aimed or anything like that, or about there needing to be some kind of like a cloud of Saturn-sized objects which are still visible, right, which are still close to us. All
Right.
those kinds of requirements just go away. You see, that's the thing that I like, about Troy's and my version of this thing, which I like a whole lot better. Now, there's one other version of this, of something like this, um, which I haven't really mentioned or gone over very much, right? If I can find it, it would be like Alfred de Grazia's version of a Saturn theory. That's the one other thing that somebody might want to talk about sooner or later, which was published around 1985.
I bought the book.
Okay, it might actually be more like the late 70s. I don't know, but it's like he was talking about an ancient system which consists of the sun and then a very, very large dwarf star, which he called Super Uranus, right?
Super Saturn. Yeah,
Super Saturn, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, which had been basically ejected just via like electrical fissioning from the sun,
Mhm.
and then basically, he was talking about something like a double star system with a plasma physics tube connecting the two of them, and with us somewhere inside this plasma tube.
Mhm.
Okay, the central fire, right?
Right.
But this was the best somebody could do with information that was available, like in the mid 70s, late 70s. Okay, whereas I think what Troy and I basically, I mean, we're not a whole lot smarter than Alfred de Grazia was. We've just got better information to work with.
Right, right. Yeah, I got that book, Solar Area Veneria, and I did see that. I have a couple of questions about Uranus. I know people say that I pronounce it wrong, but I mean, I don't know if it's Uranus, whatever you want to call it.
I
It's
don't
not.
know.
But
Oranos,
the
right? It's like,
question I have is that Saturn was said to have castrated or dethroned his father Uranus. So, I mean, there's got to be something there that we're not hearing, you know?
yeah, it's something that the ancients observed in the sky at some point, or is
Mhm.
some sort of a very old memory.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but to try to give precise explanations of these things, like I say,
Mhm.
we don't have precise pictures of all these things,
No,
right? We don't even know what a word like year would have meant, or day or month before the flood,
right.
right? We don't know what any of those things would have meant.
Yeah.
What we like I said, John Cook tries to put precise dates on things happening, like back, long before Christ, before the flood even. And,
Yeah, he has a few tardy things to say about the Thunderbolts group too. I read from him.
yeah,
I mean, I just don't understand why he would even go there. But okay, I guess that's his prerogative.
like I said, the problem I have with the Thunderbolts group is that the three things which strike me as most interesting in these pictures are taboo subjects within the Thunderbolts group, right? I mean, Mars images,
Oh,
Ganymede,
I
then this
remember what I
question.
want.
Sorry?
I'm sorry. I don't mean to step on you. I have to blurt it out or I forget it. The one thing that I meant to ask you, and I keep forgetting, is about the jumping Jupiter scenario from the Nice model. Have you heard of this?
No.
On YouTube. It's by a young guy, and it's called the Jupiter Myth. I totally recommend watching it. It's in 3 parts. It's only 45 minutes, 3 15-minute videos. And he crams so much information in them 3 15-minute videos. It just amazes me.
I'll take a look.
Yeah, oh, it's excellent. Yeah, and I'd like to hear what you think after you see it. As far,
Right.
like so far from me, from what I've seen, I like your theory because it involves the Herbig Haro objects, all of them going northerly direction, the sun catching up with the north and Jupiter. I mean, this could have been thousands of years in the making here, and the southern section slowly catching up. I mean, all of this I can piece together, I can comprehend it. You know what I mean?
Right.
For something to just wander in from, well, it would have to have been from the serpentine dwarf galaxy that's been getting eaten by the Milky Way for, they say, billions or millions of years, but we don't know. That I just think the Herbig Haro thing sounds more feasible, Ted. That's just what I think
The
right
Herbig
now.
Haro string is something which we actually observe in the sky,
Yes,
in real life, right? I mean,
yes,
it's not a theory. It's
right,
it's a known phenomenon,
right, yeah,
right? And that
yeah,
that would explain, in other words, it's like, they still teach this gravity only cosmology in our schools.
hmm,
Gravity is by 40 orders of magnitude the weakest force in nature, and gravity does not have the power to form, stars or planets up from dust or from plasma, right? 99.9% of the mass of the universe is in plasma form.
hmm,
The one thing which really does have the power to form plasma up into much more solid objects are these electromagnetic pinch points, the electrical short circuiting that you get, where the pieces of a Birkeland current cross each other,
yeah, yeah,
right? And that's just
right,
what we see.
yeah,
We see, like Herbig Haro strings where you have like one of these twisted spirals of electrical currents,
yeah. Shockwave
Birkeland
says,
current, and you see, and you see bright spots, like where these the currents cross each other, where you have the short circuiting and the Z pinch
where
effect.
did you get that info?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was talking to Shockwave. He says your Herbig Haro systems last for 100,000 years roughly, and then they coalesce into solar systems. That's exactly what I think. And I know that you agree with that too. And that's exactly part of your Ganymede. Yeah, well,
I had a picture like that sitting around here. Hang on.
yeah.
That's
I
like
know the guy, Mars Anomalies. He's actually got a few videos where he's showing these features on Ganymede. And
mhm.
oh, he's making the claim that there's still people still live there, but I mean, I wouldn't laugh at anything like that because I've heard ridiculous things before that turned out. It sounds far
Yeah,
fetched,
I
but
don't like to try to make claims like that,
right, right.
which I can't really defend, right? It wouldn't surprise me at all.
No, yeah. Well, I think that we should call it a show right now, and
Okay.
while we get our poop together for another one, and after I glean some feedback from my folks. I
Yeah.
can write it down and we can go for another shot and I can maybe get it together a little better. Okay, Ted?
Okay. Good enough. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks so much for helping us out and explaining some things for us. I really appreciate what you did for us.
Okay.
All
Good
right. I'll
enough. I
talk.
appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, Ted. Thank you, sir. I'll
Right,
talk to you
right.
soon. All right.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. With a scene above your heads that would be similar to this, is it any wonder that the ancients thought it was gigantic gods walking around? It doesn't take much of an imagination. Even today, if you saw something like that right above your heads, it would be tempting to personify it. Alright, well that'll do it. This was the recovered recording that I made just in case, and that's why I did it. I have a newfound respect for podcasters who can live stream and have everything come off like they expect it to. It's tough. I'm not talking about just throwing up one picture and having a phone conversation. I mean, the guys who do this podcast and stay current with pictures and everything like that, it's not easy, but we'll get it together. Thank you so much for your patience and support. I'll see you next time. Take care. I'm going to close out the show with this scene from the Cosmology Quest. I'll put a link in the description. I keep going back to this video because they just epicycle after epicycle for the Big Bang Theory. They just have so much gray area you don't know where you're at. With this clip that I'm about to show you, Tony Peratt shows exactly how easy it is and uncomplicated it is to have a galaxy out of plasma. You don't have to add dark stuff to make it work in a computer model. It just makes so much sense. It slaps you in the face with reality. It should, but it still doesn't. And that just, I don't know, it's just crazy to me. This is Tony Peratt and his plasma galaxy.
Simulation does is that it allows you to model the plasma regardless of size, put in the rather few basic initial equations, and then follow the simulation through its various nonlinear stages and the different morphologies or shapes that the plasma will take.
In Tony Peratt simulations, as the current spirals into the center of the galaxy, turns around and moves out along the axis of the galaxy. In that central area where the current is extremely concentrated, there seemed again the potential for violent events. And Alfvén and Peratt raised the question, couldn't this be a way of explaining the extremely violent events that occur in the center of galaxies that are known as quasars, in which huge amounts of energy are released in what, by astronomical terms, is a relatively small amount of time. That is, millions of years compared with the billions of years galaxies exist.
Initially, the time frames shown represent 1 billion years or so, but now we're going to carry it out for 10 billion years to see what happens to these double radio galaxies or quasars as the two filaments have evolved into. And you'll see that the tails start to elongate, and fairly soon you're going to start to see a spiral structure. And as we get closer to 10 billion years, the end of the movie, you will see that we have formed the shape, the morphology, the shape of a spiral galaxy.